And very often, the conditions in public housing are deplorable. So how will you hold the city accountable for keeping these apartments and keeping these buildings livable before you move on to something else? This is your, I believe this is your experiment. This is your chance to really see what social housing can do.
Great question.
Thank you so much for that question. Actually, New York is unique. New York City is unique in the fact that we have disproportionately more public housing available than almost anywhere in the country. But as you mentioned, there has been an unfortunate long-term neglect and divestment from that social housing that should be a source of pride, and instead is a source of headaches and a source of inhumanity and a source of indignity for so many of our NYCHA residents that face long waits to be able to get a basic service or a basic repair. And of course, while I do agree that we should be working with the city to ensure that they are accountable to what they are responsible for, and I'm really glad that I believe we have an administration that will be much easier to work with in that regard, we cannot ignore the fact that the federal government has a huge role to play here because of the funding component and how they fund and are taking away the funding from our social housing. And that includes cuts that have impacted even our Ravenswood community that used to have a food pantry open that closed due to the federal budget cuts from Donald Trump that served mostly elderly residents of Ravenswood. So we are seeing those impacts of just the most recent cuts. But people have been living with the long-term impact of divestment, attempts of privatization. And so absolutely, we must look at the ways in which we protect our existing affordable housing, which includes our NYCHA developments. And the person who represents this assembly district will have the deep responsibility and honor to represent 3 NYCHA developments. So this means a lot to me and should mean a lot to anybody running for this office because it is the responsibility of the person that represents this district. So yes, 100%, we should work in tandem with the city to ensure that they are accountable for their responsibility. But this is why we must also ensure that we are increasing revenue at the state level because the federal government is stealing from our public housing in order to line the pockets of the billionaires. Thanks.